Hello, good afternoon. My name is Tara Folks and I'm part of the UK Hypnosis Convention 2019 team. Today I'm joined by the fabulous Marc McDermott, who's going to tell us all about his presentation. He is talking at the Hypnosis Convention on Saturday at 2:45 p.m. It's entitled Approaching Collective Unconscious. So Marc will be discussing the specific process for learning how to experience changes in yourself in the world around you. So decisions are made in the now. So it's about encourage repeatedly to return to the present moment, to observe continuity of consciousness as it unfolds, and to engage with it in a new way. Marc has, over the last 21 years, has studied extensively with the best hypnosis trainers in the world, including Richard Bandler, Mckenna and Tad James. He is fascinated by the structure of consciousness and his personal passion to share the front edge of his continuing development and discoveries for the benefit of as many people as possible. So his presentations are entertaining and transformative in equal measure. Welcome, Marc. Your presentation sounds fantastic.
Oh, thanks. I hope it's as good as it sounds.
Do you want to tell us a little more about it?
Yeah, I guess the summary you gave at the beginning there kind of sums up a lot of how it is for me. One of my aims, really big picture aims, is to make life simpler for people. I find that over the last 20 odd years of involvement with hypnosis and before that as a therapist, I found that people were making life like very, very complicated for themselves. And a lot of the time, people said that it was who I was that was making a difference and not what I did, which annoyed me at first because I was thinking, I've learned all this complicated stuff you just don't understand. But then I thought to myself, if this is the feedback that I'm constantly getting, then maybe the best thing I can do is actually to concentrate on me. And I think that's a lot of people are doing it the opposite way. They're chasing things out there. They're wondering, where can this go to? How far can I take all of this? And the opposite question is just as relevant to me, which is, where is this actually coming from?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where does it all come from in the first place? Everything, thought, everything. Where does it come from?
Yeah.
And the more I asked that, the more I fell down a rabbit hole. And to the point that now I have many more questions than answers. But the wild roller coaster of a ride, when Richard first did NLP, and which is extensively hypnosis with Richard Bandler and Paul McKenna, one of the co-trainers, everything's really about hypnosis. And one of the things they said was, there's loads of weird stuff out there. Go and find it. They were telling me to do it, and they were the trainers. So I thought, well, okay. And the next thing was I was finding stuff that I would just never have done as a therapist. I mean, just never. One of my favourite things, a few months after taking the practitioner course, I helped someone who'd had a double leg amputation, and he had a lot of phantom limb pain, and he talked about it a lot, kind of thing, And then I just wondered to myself, well, surely the unconscious mind can do something about that. It's just that he's constantly saying, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. And it's a very present moment thing. It's kind of recreating the event again and again and again by actually saying that it's there.
Yes.
So I asked him, would you like to work with me? And I couldn't guarantee anything, but it seemed to me that there's no reason for him to have that pain. And maybe we could find something more useful to do instead, So, because in short, he used to complain that his artificial limbs were 2 inches shorter than his original limbs. And his one glimmer of hope that he thought with having his legs cut off was that he'd be a bit taller because he was really small. So he was quite bitter about it, in a very colourful way. And so, anyway, he was he's a spiritualist medium. Really interesting guy. He looked and sounded just like Milton Erickson. I wish I could have filmed the guy before he left the planet. But anyway, we both went into a trance, and we went as far as we could go into our own respective trances. And we asked for some idiomotor signals and simply asked it, would it take the thing that was telling him that he was in pain and make it do something else instead, i.e. make the phantom limbs the same size and dimensions as the artificial limbs and to not have any pain. And, short story, it agreed to do that, had permission, blah, 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 it would take full and unconscious control. And then we came out of the trance and said, well, there you go. see you later. And a few days later, he phoned me up and he was effing and blinding down the phone at me. I said, oh my God, what have I done to the guy? And he'd nearly fallen down the stairs a couple of times because he'd forgotten that he had artificial limbs. Wow. And he needed to grab the handrails. And he'd forgotten a couple of times and then stepped down the stairs. This was like so far off my scale of what therapy was about that, and in the back of my head, I've got Richard Bandler saying, you know, there's weird stuff out there, go and find it. And thus began the ride of a lifetime. And the last 20 years since then has just been just incredible. You know, I'm truly humbled by people's ability to do things for themselves if the right circumstances are there. You understand? I don't do anything to anyone.
Yeah.
It's not a do-to process. It's not like you leave your car at the garage and you go shopping and you come back and it's fixed. You know? So it's not me. I'm not making these changes happen for people. They are making them happen. And they're the most powerful beings that they could possibly encounter. And on my side of that, I've become my own best friend. It's a humbling experience when I truly realized that it's hard to call it a part of me, really, you know, when that aspect of me continues to breathe for me while I'm asleep. I, the speaker of this sentence, while I'm asleep, it breathes for me, it makes new cells in the body. It's doing pretty much everything, including making my throat wobble at the moment and air come out of it in such a way that my meaning is being transmitted. When you think about it, it's totally incredible, the whole process.
Yes.
So after a brief moment of experiencing it, almost like I'm as significant as a fly on the front of a phantom jet flyer. And I realized that, no, actually, you know, who's driving the bus? Well, it's me. I'm driving the bus. And there is no conscious and unconscious. Not really. It's a clumsy wordology by which we get to describe, this is my opinion, experience, because there is only consciousness. There's not me and my own conscious. It's not like, you know, a split thing. It's just, it's me. I'm making cells happen. I'm doing those things. I'm releasing neurotransmitters. I am coming from where I'm coming from. So this really adds to my personal experience. I spent 38 years in martial art training, and pretty much all of that is about where is it coming from as well. What can I return from? Where am I coming from? Where does thought come from? Where does it go back to? The thought itself is not as relevant in some ways as where it came from and where it goes to, which is, you know, in my opinion, kind of the same place. But then so does being at ease or being with dis-ease and many other phenomena. You know, I've seen people go through the most amazing experiences that they could possibly go through, healing themselves of things which are not in the medical books, you know, me included. And these things, they're just, we brush a lot of things aside, you know. We say that it's all about logic and we've got to construct, you know, logos, the word. It's all got to be somehow rational. And over time, we've been discarding this whole other side of ourselves that's irrational, and it can mean it's an inconvenience, you know, some sort of annoying little inconvenience, this thing, but actually it's massive. You know, the unconscious is totally huge, my own personal unconscious, but then there's levels, not that one is higher or lower than another, but just from my experience over the years, there's my consciousness, which I'm doing my best with, and I'm learning over time to become better at being able to drive my bus. Occasionally I get off and have to get back in the driving seat like anyone else, you know. But I'm doing the best I can and I'm learning, and that process is accelerating the more that I turn all my skills on myself rather than on other people, because that's what I can guarantee. I can change my map, you know, Korzybski said the map's not the territory. I'm totally in agreement. The map isn't the territory. The map's just some useful but sometimes not useful hallucination which I experience, which tells me that there's an outside world. You know, even this picture that I'm looking at the moment is actually something that I'm constructing inside myself. And I can be stood, as I have been, literally shoulder to shoulder with someone on the same street at the same time, and he was seeing like scowling faces everywhere, and I was seeing happy, smiley, noddy faces everywhere. And even after he told me about everyone scowling, I couldn't see it.
No.
And so he was selecting from his huge amount. I mean, process is, it's something like 11 million bits per second. There's 11 million things coming at me, and my brain's doing 126 of them, you know? So, but I can't even be aware of 126. I can only be aware of 7 plus or minus 2 things. And there's 11 million coming. So I think it's really important to decide which I'm going to select.
Absolutely.
Because that 126, I'm going to start to create what I call reality.
Yeah. It's
not reality. It's just what I'm going to call reality. And in exceptional circumstances, exceptional things can happen. But even in the days when it's not exceptional, totally incredible things happen if you allow them to happen. And for me, being aware of the present moment, hence being more aware of the moment-to-moment unfolding of reality, as I said it in your intro.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people discount that because they're too busy to get to the techniques, to get to the things, to get to the scripts. Where's the scripts? Whenever I teach my students how to free flow into hypnosis, we start with scripts. But then I teach them the structure of their language, very, very kind of, you know, the process language, not the, you know, elephant doesn't do anything. And it's not even called that across the world. That's just in English, you know, so it's an arbitrary word. But certain structural language, any 6-year-old child speaks the structural language that we all speak. And then people get more and more complicated, and they get lost in the complication.
Yes.
And they forget.
Yes.
And I would argue that probably the majority of this planet are living in a trance. And so bringing people out of trance is kind of what it's about, not putting people into trance. It's kind of the opposite.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because that's it. We are addicted to thinking nowadays. We're addicted to staying in our heads. We think that we need to hand over our problems and things to others. And exactly like you say, we need to learn and to teach people how to heal themselves, how they can, within hypnosis, all we do is we guide them, and they make the required changes. They do everything that they need to do. There's no magic wand out there. It is this collaboration. No, there's no magic wand.
Be telling people I've left it in the boot of the car today. Maybe I'll bring it in next time, you know. But
that's it. But I find that really empowering, that anybody can achieve that. They just have to be willing and ready to listen to it. Yeah, that's the great thing about what you do, because you enable people to do that, and not everybody's in the right place to be able to listen, but the important thing is the seeds are sown.
Absolutely, yeah. And for me, the thing is to notice when other people go in and out of those trance states, because they're doing it hundreds of times a day anyway. And as soon as that moment happens when they're no longer conscious, but their eyes are still open and they're still speaking words, it's all coming out. And they effectively hand what they need out on a plate.
Yeah.
So the ability to stay conscious long enough to notice that phenomena when it starts to reveal itself is what it's all about. And again, with my students, I put a lot of effort into helping them to become more and more aware of themselves and to stay with it for as long as possible, so that they then become aware of what their clients are saying to them as well, you know, and to help with that as much as possible. Because to me, it's almost so simple that it's ridiculous, you know.
That's it. It is simplistic in its approach, but it's difficult to train yourself to become aware of it, isn't it? That's where the difficulty arises, because like you say, people slip in and out of consciousness all the time, and very often we don't realize that we're doing it, and then it's this is it. We don't realize that we're doing it, and then it's like, oh, hang on, I'm doing it again. And then it's just, and I always tell people it's about shifting them back into being aware and engaging, like you say, with the present moment, with the now.
Absolutely.
You talk about the structure of consciousness. Can you tell us anything more about that, Mark?
In a short space of time. To me, one of the things that really intrigues me is the relationship between the structure of language and the structure of consciousness in the moment that it emerges. So not half an hour later.
Mm.
That's just a secondary report back of something. But right in the moment, there's a direct correlation, as far as I can tell, between the structure of someone's consciousness and the structure of the language which emerges from them in the moment. And making changes or helping someone to make changes to the structure of their language and the structure of the way they think. Look, you know, all thoughts become suggestions to the unconscious mind.
Absolutely.
You know, so isn't it important to actually concentrate a little bit on this?
Yeah.
And actually take some time to notice what's going on? You know, my clients at first, they are a bit bemused by my slowly increasing insistence on the precision with which they communicate.
Yes. You become pedantic, don't you, as a therapist like this? Yeah.
And they can even, you know, some people are almost sticking fingers up at me at times, but they're with the realization they know what's going on. And then the change starts to happen for them because they're staying with it long enough to rewrite the neurology.
Yeah.
And they're rewriting it by rewriting the way that they think. You know, the way you think changes the way you feel, changes the neurotransmitters that you're releasing. Everything becomes at hand when you clean up your neurology. And I think it takes about 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Something like that of consistency in the effort. For people to actually start to get their head around it. Yeah. And then after that, they, you know, given that clients want certain changes to happen, and then that's the end of the relationship in effect at that point. So people check in from time to time over the months ahead or whatever. With my students, I maintain that relationship with them afterwards. So for example, in 2 hours time, we'll be meeting up and I'll be talking to them a lot about this actually.
Wow.
Presentation. And giving them the presentation that I'll be
sneak preview.
Well, like, you know, it's a kind of a plug-in for them, isn't it, as well? It's, you know, to try and take them to, well, not even to try, so I'll rewrite that in front of you, to actually take them to somewhere where perhaps they haven't been yet for a longer period of time with me. They'll have all have touched upon it during the training. But now let's, you know, they've had time at the various, I don't know, some people have only trained a month ago, some people years ago. But there's going to be a place which we can all access together. My intention is to have us to experience that oneness together, and to communicate from within that oneness to each other. So however many people there are in that room, say there's, you know, 12 people in there tonight, then there's a collective consciousness of 12 in that room. When it's down at the conference, there'll be however many people there are in that room. There's a collective conscious going on. If people are not aware or not curious enough to allow themselves to experience consciousness at that level and to speak back to it, because that's the thing, the difference between some people I know are aware of that type of level of communication, but when they encounter it, they don't know what to do, and they're stuck, in effect. They don't know what to do. They become silent, and maybe they can observe it, but they're not actually doing anything with it.
Yeah.
To actually be, I think the knowing is actively participating in it and getting into the event and actually allowing that to happen, and allowing your own unconscious effectively to come through without being the keeper at the gate. So you don't pre-plan, and to allow it to come. And sometimes people are very, very surprised by what they say. Yeah. When they can get into that state, and they make, say, a plan about what it's going to be like in a year from now. Yeah. And they'll say something like, you know, well, I had no idea I was going to say that, and I would never have said that. But now that I have,
it's
actually,
a great idea.
That is what I want. So now we can make a SMART goal and break it down into the steps, you know. So for clients, they might get to their access what they need to from that. And then although they've had the experience, they may not hang on to it forever, and they get what they need and they move on. With people that I teach, I'm attempting to get it a step further, where they get to acknowledge that experience for themselves and then return to it in their own time and explore it. And I think that a lot more people would benefit by experiencing it for themselves, and to open up a dialogue. And there's not much written about this subject.
No.
Although, if you look in the, you know, it has been written about for 6,000 years as well. It's, you know, Patanjali, and you know, there's lots of people throughout time, you know, who've talked about it. But
Yes.
a lot of the time it's in the dusty shelves of the esoteric section
or it's misinterpreted, like in the Bible it mentions about it's misinterpreted, so that's it. It's I mean, it sounds fantastic. And within your presentation, will you be getting people into this collective unconscious state?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the whole point would be to get as many people, maybe the whole room, if everyone's prepared to, explore,
yeah,
have a go, then why not? And let's open up a dialogue in the room, and let's get talking from within that, and let's see what we could be drawing. Brand new things come out of this, and it's no different to me from, I've been playing music all my life, live, and there's that moment when the same song that could take 8 minutes one night could take 15 or 20 minutes the next night, because something else is happening. And that's something which isn't from Logos. It's not, I can't express it in words. There are places I go which I can't put into words because they're not there. But from there, stuff is drawn down. New music, new ideas, new thoughts, new stuff. I want new. I want people to be intrigued by new. Why the brain for new, not old? I don't go back in the shed and look at things that I used to be.
Yes.
There's no real purpose in doing that, except for self-gratification or something. Or someone says, "What's your national insurance number?" And I go, "Oh, well, let me see." I can usually pull that one out, but my age, sometimes I'm a bit stuck.
But that's it. But people get lost within the story, don't they? They get lost within who they've been, what's happened to them, what's made them how they are today. And it's about, like you were saying earlier on, about the language. You can tell when people aren't taking responsibility for themselves, and you can unpick that and then point that out to them with the language. And like you say, then begin to change the way that they view themselves, that they view their future, and then in turn rewires their brain.
I'm constantly astonished. I totally agree with you. Responsibility, the ability to respond, and persona, someone's persona is revealed by means of sonar sound.
Right.
So that's how it comes, and it surprises me. I had someone a few weeks back that told me that she was feeling terrible every single day of her life. And this is before I even had a session. So we're just having a cup of coffee. That's all we're doing, Couldn't possibly be doing anything else. And so we're having a cup of coffee. That moment happens where she was no longer aware of herself.
Yeah.
And then she told me exactly how she did it. So I let her roll for another sentence. And then I said, "Can you just step you back a second there? Because are you aware that you just gave me the entire program for how you feel bad every single day?" And she looked at me like I had, 3 heads and green hair and was speaking some other language or something. Yeah. And she's totally unaware that she'd spoken anything. So I said, "Okay, so what you just said was, I got loads of stuff to do, and then I don't do it, and then I shove it down inside and I hope it goes away, but it doesn't. And then I cycle round like that until I reach a threshold. And when I go over the threshold, I shit all over my husband, and then I feel bad about it for days afterwards, and it's happening all the time." Yeah. I said, "You just said those words," and it was like a bomb went off inside. And she's like, "Oh my God, I actually did say those words, And of course she didn't want it to stay like that. So of course she then became a client and resolved that. That's an example of how clearly definable it is to me. If I stay present and don't try to do anything about it, then that lovely dance of rapport can start to happen between my unconscious and their unconscious. And who knows, the higher consciousness, or whatever you might want to call it, the deepest part of your unconscious mind, if you don't like the word higher conscious, but something else totally transpersonal can happen, and it's totally noticeable when it's happening. And in there seems to be the majority of the answers that anyone seems to require. So I'm not trying to be clever. I'm not trying to be complicated. I can say any of this to a 6-year-old child and they can understand me. That's been my youngest client, And why make it complicated, The whole thing is there. They have the structure. They have the answer, because they wouldn't have that structure inside them if they didn't have the answer, because they have to know, is this what I was looking for? No, there has to be something to compare it against. So they have it already. So I don't need to provide that for them. I know I'm talking to the converted here, but it's up to them to know that thing and to access what I know they have inside them already, and to have that faith to not try to do something, to try to be the person that even they think they want me to be, because their projections are coming at me.
Yes.
As much as mine are going at them, because all perception is projection. Yes. So in effect, when I help them to clean up part of their life, I'm actually cleaning up part of my life. But I don't tell them that because they wouldn't pay me.
No, but that is the joy of what we do, isn't it? That is the joy of what we do. And you make a very valid point there. It's about listening. It's about not trying to make something fit the individual, a particular protocol, a particular approach. It's about listening to the individual, and then listening to what it is that they say, what they need, and then reflecting it back to them, showing them that there is another way, and like you say, staying conscious and staying engaged with that. Yeah,
absolutely. So the difference between working with a client as such, or what I intend to do at the convention, would be that I want to make it explicit at the convention. Whereas with a client, if they go into a very deep state of being and they don't know that they're in a very deep state of being, they don't need to know they're in a deep state of being. So one of the things that quite often people say to me was that, I don't know why I've changed, because we were just talking. Yeah, right. We were just talking. Pay the bill. Because your phobia's gone, your food relationship has totally changed, and you've rearranged your life and smashed it, Yeah. It wasn't just that, we were just chatting, No, of course we're not chatting. But they don't need to know the ins and outs of the depths to which they're going, as long as they get the results they want.
Exactly. And that's what it's all about. It's about that results. It's about changing people's lives. So that, again, that they can walk away and apply that across the board within their life as well.
Absolutely. And in fact, I've had a number of my clients that have gone away and then produced the phenomena which I've helped them to produce. And they've gone and done it with other people. So pain removal, I did pain removal with a nurse. And the next thing is she did that to someone in a hospital.
Fantastic.
I never told her she could do that.
No. Is she signed up to one of your courses now to...
Yeah, but she's on the email list. But she was certainly convinced. And that's one of the beautiful things, isn't it? Again, the 6-year-old child, I helped to get rid of a dog phobia, extreme dog phobia. And of course, that was gone. But along the way, I gave him, a thing called a ring of power. I don't know if you've come across that. It's just like an anchor, basically. Yes. But call it a ring of power, and they put it on the floor and it stepped in and blah, blah. And a couple of weeks later, he told me that they were no longer called rings of power. They were called rainbow circles, and they were more powerful. Wow. And he'd shown his 3-year-old sister how to make one, because she was gutted that she didn't get to make one.
That it just makes your day, doesn't it? When you hear stories like that they've not only shared it with the sister that was sad, but developed it as well. That's just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
He taught me a lot about being flexible with consciousness. His idea of reality was very, very flexible indeed. And I like to think I'm flexible, but he taught me something that day.
And that's what's wonderful as well, is that we are constantly learning from each other. That we have that approach to to continual evolution, continual engagement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If projection is perception, which I totally believe, absolutely right down the line, 100%. And if the future is just a concept, it doesn't exist, which is exactly how I believe. Past is gone, including that sentence. I can't have that ever again. So I'm left with right now. And right now, the pain that hasn't existed yet doesn't have to exist.
Yeah, exactly.
And or a different way, the person that existed right up until now doesn't have to continue to exist.
Yeah. And it's so powerful.
That's the massive thing about it. Like, all answers are within the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite phrases by Eckhart Tolle is, we create pain when we don't accept the current moment as it is. And I absolutely love that, and use that all the time, and tell all of my clients that, and anybody that's struggling, don't create pain for yourself. And this is what we do, don't we? We create pain by looking back or looking ahead, and actually let's just make the best of the moment.
Yeah, the moment's what it is. Don't expect it to be different.
Yeah.
Work on it by all means, but
yeah.
it's what it is. So just accept it. It's a beautiful ride. As far as I can tell, it's a one-way trip.
Yeah.
No one's ever told me different.
It's the best for me as well. It's the best journey that I've ever been on. It's fantastic. Since I've learned all of this, since I've opened my world up to looking at the world through these specs.
Yeah. So, and that's what I want. You know, I want people to be satisfied with the life that they're living.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you know, when you get to the end, when you're in the rocking chair looking back, I want people to be, you know, happy and satisfied because they did what they really, really wanted to do. They fulfilled the purpose in life. They found their purpose, and they attached that to the results they were getting in the life, and everything else in between can be changed. All their skills, their abilities, their beliefs, their values, all of these things can all just be changed really, really easily because they're just made up. They're just made up stuff.
Yeah.
You know, but if you put your purpose, that's proper real. That is, you know, when I realized I'd sidestepped away from my purpose, which is doing this stuff, and accidentally ended up working in the film industry.
Right.
And then I was working at the top end of the film industry in Soho down there. And what was I doing? I was earning loads of money, but was that it? You know, I've given up everything now practically for money. Now, if I step out of it, I'm going to have a complete financial nosedive.
Yeah.
So I didn't do it for the first year. And then I realized, you know, a year later, I was still in the same place.
Yeah.
So I stepped away from it. I thought, well, I can only do what I expect my clients to do.
Yeah.
If I need a course correction,
yeah,
I need a course correction. And so I did. I just stepped right the way away from it and started again. And it was just the most amazing thing for me to do for myself, because here I am doing it all. I leave for Australia in a few days to go and continue helping assist the Tad James company. Their next batch of trainers coming online. And, you know, I can afford to shut my business down for a month. I can afford to travel over there and do all that stuff. I couldn't have done any of that when I was lost in the film industry for a few years. So, you know, by throwing everything away, I've got everything I wanted.
It's just so powerful. And speaking to you today, Mark, has just completely inspired me. And I just can't wait to come along and see your presentation and get involved in this collective unconscious.
Do tell me about it afterwards, by all means.
So thank you so much for joining me today, Mark. Best wishes in Australia and regards to all the Tad James crew over there. If tickets are still available for the UK Hypnosis Convention, if you would like to get tickets, go to the ukhypnosisconvention.co.uk. Thank you so much for joining me today, Mark, and I'll look forward to seeing you in November.
Yeah, I look forward to being there. Great. Thanks for your time.
Take care. Thank you.
Right, thanks.
Right, I've stopped.
Great.
Yeah, there we go. I've stopped. Yes.